Dear Ambassador, thank you so much for accepting our interview. Syria is considered to be the cradle of human civilization. So I would very much like to ask you, what do you think is the importance of this meeting now that we're having this conference on dialogue of Asian civilizations?
Thank you. Thank you. I agree with you that Syria is one of the cradles of civilization, of human civilization. And I believe this is a very important conference because while there are individuals and so-called thinkers in the West that are promoting the clash of civilizations, we have a completely, totally different approach from China, which is about a dialogue based on respect and on mutual understanding and on mutual benefit for mankind. So I think this is profoundly serious and profoundly important.
Now, how do you look at the fact that this is also one of the few occasions where Asian countries come together and emphasize the Asian consciousness, our Asian identities?
I loved it. When I first received this invitation, I thought this was new, it's unique, and it's extraordinary. And yes, we are one continent, we are one in many things, and yet our diversity and our cultural differences are magnificent, but magnificent in the most beautiful, most promising way. So I thought this is a brilliant idea, and I fell in love with it immediately. And now I was sitting in this conference looking at the heads of states, at the guests, at the people, and I felt how strong this Asian bond is. And I felt proud to be Asian.
You were there to witness President Xi Jinping's important keynote speech where he talked about several ways that countries should act in order to achieve their expectations, such as peace and prosperity, such as common development. What are your most important takeaways from his speech?
Particularly, I was most important when he said, imagine this world, one people, one ethnicity, one color, one language, one culture. It will be a dull world. It's our diversity and our differences that enhance and enrich us. And this is why our world is a beautiful world. When he said this, I told myself, if many people in this world would learn this simple but far-reaching wisdom. I also paid attention to certain points he proposed. He pledged that China would help all Asian countries to restore and to maintain their archaeological sites and their heritage, historic heritage. Also the translation of classics. I also thought this was very thoughtful because as we all know, it's almost usually the Western classics that are well known around the world, but we also have our literary heritage that should be presented and should be known by other nations and other cultures. I also noted with great interest his interest in exchange of young communities and of the people,
yes.
The civil society, the real components of the people among the Asian nations to help build bridges and strengthen connections. These are the things that really interested me in his speech.
Yeah. I was there too, and I noted all of these points that you mentioned, and I noticed that these are exactly where the most warmest response came from the spectators. Everybody were applauding when he was talking about translating Asian classics, when he was talking about promoting tourism. What do you think is China trying to do by taking up all of these initiatives? Because this is not just developing Chinese culture or developing Chinese economy, it's helping other Asian countries promote their traditional culture. Why do you think China is trying to do this?
This is very interesting, really. What I want to say is the following. At one point, the major European powers became rising powers on the world scene at one point in history. And once they thought that they were strong enough and rich enough, they sent their navies and their armies around the world, especially to the less developed countries because they believed they had the superior culture and they were the superior race, so they were entitled to spread their influence and their culture even by force. Here we notice, and this is historically important, China, a rising power, becoming ever more developed, ever more strong, and ever more rich, and it is saying, we respect all other civilizations. We believe that we can give, but we can also take. We believe that we can extend the bridges and we can engage in a very respectful dialogue.
Yeah.
A dialogue that will enrich us, the Chinese, but will also enrich those who are willing to become partners in this engagement. So I think this is a historically important approach and a lesson for other developed nations to learn.
Yeah. However, I think it is going to be inevitable that some people in the other civilizations, especially in the West, might look at this with some skepticism.
Exactly. When President Xi Jinping was delivering his speech, I thought of the skeptics there. They will start saying, no, that's not true, this is not what China wants, but you know, you have to look forward, focus on what you believe in, move forward. People believe in you and people believe you. And I think this is the way forward for humanity.
On the other hand, though, do you think China is sensitive to the legitimate questions about what China is trying to do, or about the potential for competition, at least, you know, between different civilizations?
I believe China is sensitive and should be sensitive to the legitimate concerns of the others. However, China should not heed the yelling and the shouting and sometimes the insults that are directed at China that are unjustifiable and are illegitimate.
Well, how do you look at the fact that leaders from Greece, for instance, was also present, and representatives from Africa were also present in this dialogue?
I thought it was a very clever idea to bring the representative, the president of Greece, as a representative of the Western civilization, because as you know, Greece is considered in the West as the source, the mother of all Western civilizations. So here we are, the Asians, talking about our heritage, our culture, our civilization, but also taking into account the importance of communicating and of engaging with the other civilizations. I thought this was a very, very intelligent gesture, and it was symbolic. It meant we are not here just closing the doors and talking among ourselves. We are inviting to share with us the representative, the most important representative of the Western civilization and Western culture.
Is it going to stay on the level of symbolism, or do you think maybe in the future this should be expanded to a larger scale? Because at this forum we are not seeing as many European, for instance, or as many American participants. Of course, we have participants who are from these countries, but they are not featured so high, so dominantly. Do you think it's going to be effective when Asians are having our own conversation without the participation or active participation of other civilizations?
I think it will build up. Right now, scholars and thoughtful people from the Western Hemisphere are interested in this conference, and they are objective people, and they would love to see a higher and ever increasing level of engagement between West and East, between Asia and Europe. But of course, on the other hand, you will have political motives and you will have ulterior motives that will always try to belittle what we are doing, to regard us as the second-class inferior civilization and culture. They believe in their complex of superiority. So you will have this dialogue also among them in the West. I believe in the good nature of humanity, and I believe in eventually those in the West who believe in stronger ties and bonds and in equality of humanity and the equality of civilizations will have the upper hand in the end.
Yeah. Talking about your country's case, we are slowly seeing light at the end of the tunnel, although we do not know exactly when. From the conversation between civilizations' point of view, do you think your country would have benefited if the world would conduct conversation among civilizations in a different manner?
It would have made a dramatic difference. I mean, to be engaged in a civilized dialogue about differences as compared to engaging in terrorist and violent acts makes a tremendous difference, not only for my country but for humanity. My country is strongly represented in this conference, not only through the presence of scholars, thinkers, politicians, diplomats, but also we have a women's only music band that is participating. We have a traditional folklore dance team from Raqqa, one of the cities that was savagely destroyed by the US bombardment in Syria, and by the Islamic State terrorist attacks as well, but more destroyed by the civilized United States than the barbaric Islamic State terrorists. And we are engaged in all the activities here, and this is also our message to the world. Even if you disagree with us, engage with us in a very serious, civilized dialogue.
Yeah. Finally, in terms of tourism, what more opportunities are there for instance, Chinese tourists or other tourists to visit Syria now that situation seems to be stabilizing?
There are major touristic cultural sites that are in very, very completely stable areas in Syria that are completely secure.
Okay.
And we are more than happy to receive tourists from friendly nations, from across the world actually, not only from politically friendly nations, and particularly the Chinese tourists are warmly welcomed in Syria.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Syria to China, Dr. Imad Mustafa.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.